do you get if you combine Michele Bachmann with 50 Shades of Grey? The ebook Fires of Siberia might be the answer. In the forthcoming romance novel, a character based on the former Republican presidential candidate gets stranded in Siberia, where she has a steamy affair. Joining us now is the book's author, Tréy Sager. It is great to have you here, Tréy. You said you felt like you looked at Michele Bachmann and there was something missing from her life. What was that thing?
A romance. I mean, Michele Bachmann is obviously a very polarizing figure. Yeah. People feel very strongly one way or another about her. She inspires a lot of allegiance and then a lot of enmity. And because she has such, I guess, publicly acknowledged sex appeal, and she's this very enigmatic figure, I thought what better place to explore these intense feelings that the culture has about her in a romance novel.
I'm a big Michele Bachmann fan. I worked on her campaign.
Did you really?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that was missing in many people's imagination of her was her interpersonal romance. Sarah Palin had the same problem, right? There's a sense that the husband is being emasculated, the husband is kind of invisible, or at least sort of shadowed because of this huge presence of the woman. In your book, you say the same thing, that there's this romantic piece missing. What are you trying to say about her husband?
Well, nothing in particular. I mean, I'm not speaking of Michele Bachmann in particular. She's inspiring the story, but
let's talk about the.
But I can say I also do find it kind of fascinating that as a culture we are really interested in Marcus Bachmann, Michele Bachmann's sex life, or what's happening in his bedroom. We have the whole sort of tropes exist on the internet about his sexuality. I think that's kind of fascinating and unusual.
Because she is Danielle, the character, just to remind us that we're not actually talking.
Please.
Very, very similar. Very similar. I want to read this passage from the book. As for politics, the truth of the matter was that Danielle fell into it. She had no intention of running for office, and a welcome discovery changed all that. One day she was scanning the paper and read that a local hospital was receiving public money, a hospital that performed abortions. Danielle had been an unwanted child, almost abandoned in utero. She thought of all the little Danielles and Daniels who were being murdered, and she crashed a press conference declaring on live television, "I don't want to be a landlord for these baby killers." And then you write about Danielle's husband, Julian, quote, "Meanwhile, Julian continued working at the counseling center, helping wayward boys find their paths. Every night he came home late and smelling of bar soap, that freshly showered scent. What allegations could there
That's what I'm getting at. That's all I'm saying, man.
Well, that's part of the story, and I think it's part of the cultural perception of that character, so I can't not include it.
Well,
you have to say, having read parts of the book, you find a lot of very flowery ways to talk about sex. The chapter Python in Winter was a personal favorite. Lots of dipping of pens and inkwells. I want to read this from Nihilist Deity, who says, "This sounds more like it was based on Sarah Palin, not Michele Bachmann. Why not base it on Sarah Palin? Who I think there is the same intrigue around."
Yeah, I think she sort of was the original Republican bombshell, but I think that there's something really unique and unusual about Michele Bachmann. I have a lot of respect for her. I don't share her politics, but I think she's a quite an enigmatic, powerful woman figure, and I think it's interesting how much. I mean, people responded to Sarah Palin, and it seemed to me, maybe because Michele Bachmann was running for the highest office, maybe because it's more contemporary. But there's something more sympathetic to me about Michele Bachmann than there is Sarah Palin.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. A lot of people say the opposite. That Michele seems more crazy, and that Sarah seems to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the phenomenon of this polarity that she kind of creates.
Well, how do you feel about people who compare your work to something like 50 Shades?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't think many people have read it to make such a comparison.
Oh, those Tea Party cruises, they're going to be going like hotcakes.
I mean, and not necessarily with the issue of like bondage or something.
I think this will be more successful.
From your lips. No, but I mean, I think part of the comparison is that 50 Shades has become a kind of pop culture entree into porn, right? I mean, like you could read that for the most part, respectably on the subway or at work. You can give it to your mom for Mother's Day until she opens up and reads it and figures out exactly what's inside of it. Do you think that there might be a way that your book can do the same thing, that people can have the kind of dignified front of a fascinating political, thriller?
Yeah, I would love that to be the case, and I think that that's what romance novels really are. I think that when I was doing a lot of research about it, there's a real possibility that romance novels in that genre is a feminist text. So that's really appealing to me as a writer, and I love that idea.
Let me ask you one more question. I'm always fascinated by the writer's life, right? Like I talked to Jackie Collins one time, and she talked about her own wild romantic escapades and how it informs the book. How wild is your life that you write books like
You have no idea. Very exciting.
I figured as much. All right, guys.
Any man who has 20 different ways of saying nipples is really got an exciting life. Fires of Siberia comes out on June 1st from publisher Badlands Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Today.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, we take a look at what's trending on the Huffington Post.